What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Cube. Today, I'm going to be doing a game preview of the Week 1 matchup tomorrow between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns. So, before I get into this video, I just want to know if you enjoy this type of NFL content, make sure to like and subscribe. We do all sorts of NFL content daily. We have three other hosts, Kian, Charlie, and Dylan. So, if you like NFL content often, make sure to stick around. So, before we get into this analysis, I'm just going to go over first the key inactives, the injury report. So for the Chiefs, they remain, in my opinion, like relatively unscathed. I think most of their players here are full participants and will 99% sure they'll play. The one out player is Austin Blythe, which I don't think is that big of an injury. It's abdomen, sorry. And then their questionable players are defensive end Frank Clark and defensive tackle Derek Nottie. Those are both questionable, and I think they would be decent pieces to miss. So obviously, you don't want to see that. They are at risk of missing the game. For the Browns, they are a bit more hurt. They have two players that are already out: Tony Fields II, the rookie, and Michael Dunn, the backup offensive lineman. And then you have a bunch of players questionable. Some of the big names: Jadeveon Clowney, Odell Beckham Jr., Grant Delpit, Ronnie Harrison, J.C. Treader, and Chase McLaughlin. All somewhat big pieces are questionable for this game. I assume the majority of them will probably end up playing in such a big game like this, especially players like Beckham. I expect to play, like Jadeveon Clowney. I would also expect to play. Grant Delpit didn't play the entire season, so they might be a bit more conservative with him. They obviously did for the kicker Chase McLaughlin. They did get Matt Nager off of waivers so that we could see him start. He's on the practice squad right now. So those are the injuries. Some of I expect most of the Browns' key players to play in this game, even though they are designated as questionable. So now let's start off going to the matchups. I'm going to start off with the Chiefs offense versus the Cleveland Browns defense. So obviously, when you talk about the Chiefs offense, you can't not talk about Patrick Mahomes, their quarterback. Probably he's definitely top two in terms of quarterbacks, probably the best quarterback in the National Football League. Their receivers are still elite: Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. They have a couple of burners on their team like Nicole Hardman, Brian Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, and their running backs are kind of underrated. Obviously, I think they're going to miss losing Damian Williams, who went to Chicago. I think he was an integral part, an underrated part of that Super Bowl run, and arguably should have won Super Bowl MVP when they did win the Super Bowl. I still think Edwards-Helaire will have a much bigger leap. I think they'll give the ball to him a bit more than they did last season, given that they don't want to overwork Mahomes. I think Darrell Williams is also a solid piece. So obviously, this Chiefs offense looks same good as always. I think one key loss is obviously um, Sammy Watkins, who did go to Baltimore, but I think they look pretty good at the skill positions. And then when you look at the offensive line, that this is really the story of the offseason. They completely revamped it in a positive way. They have two rookies on the offensive line, but I feel like they're both likely to be very good. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, although I could say Laurent Duvernay Tardif playing week one. But the big marquee signings were the trades for Orlando Brown and the signing of Joe Thuney, who I think will play a key role immediately in keeping the franchise quarterback Mahomes upright. So I really like the Chiefs offense. I think they really have no true weaknesses. Obviously, the running game is probably bottom half, but that isn't really that big of a concern when you have the best passing attack in the NFL. Now you go into the Cleveland defense, and this is another big story. Cleveland really revamped it, really improved the defense from last season. I especially really like the back line, but the front seven looks pretty good also. Obviously, Myles Garrett is the key player. He's going to be the key player in Cleveland for a long time to come. Jadeveon Clowney is kind of a low-risk signing. I think he still has a bit of juice left in him. Maybe he can have, I don't know, 5 sacks at least. That's probably what they're hoping. Someone who can at least maybe be a competent edge partner for Myles Garrett and get him more one-on-ones, which they haven't had in a while. Malik Jackson, I also like that sign. Another guy who really feel like could show up. Tommy Tagai, the rookie, I would expect him to get some touches. And really, the front seven in general, I really like this. One of the more underrated times I feel like of free agency was Anthony Walker to the Browns. I think he was a key part of why the Colts defense was one of the best in the National Football League, and I feel like he could maybe instrument maybe a similar turnaround for Cleveland. I really like Malcolm Smith is a bit older, but I still don't hate that signing. Sion Takitaki, I think he had an underrated season as well. And of course, a headline second round pick, the steal of the draft, in my opinion, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Do not be surprised at all if he does get some touches of the game, whether or not in the Mike linebacker position or at will. I really think the Browns linebacking core is very underrated, could end up emerging as a top 10 unit towards the end of the season. And obviously, when you look at the secondary, it is absolutely loaded with young talent. Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit, Troy Hill, who they added in free agency. There is so much talent here. John Johnson. I think that's why a lot of people expect the Browns to make a huge leap, because there's so much talent in the secondary. And the real question is really, can they stay healthy, which they haven't been able to in the past few years. Obviously, no, Denzel Ward he showed signs of being a number one cornerback with his very good rookie season. It kind of hasn't been able to stay fully healthy for an entire season recently. Greedy Williams was out for most of the season last year. Grant Delpit was out for the whole season. But I think with that talent, if they can stay healthy, they can form one of the best young secondaries in the NFL, especially with the additions of free safety John Johnson and slot corner Troy Hill. This is a scary unit to go against. And honestly, they probably stand a better chance of at least slowing down Kansas City than most teams in the National Football League. So I really like what the Browns did with their defense on all facets of the line, from the front seven to the back line, the secondary. So I think the Browns have done pretty good. And maybe obviously it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to stop the Kansas City offense, but they're at least giving them a chance. So now let's go on to the offensive side of the ball for the Cleveland Browns. And I think their offense obviously is one of the best in the National Football League, as well as Kansas City. Baker Mayfield made a significant jump for is he really our franchise guy we have to build around him and make this team even better than it was last year, which was extremely good. Baker Mayfield, obviously a huge quarterback at the skill positions. They get Odell Beckham back from the torn ACL, which is huge. Jarvis Landry was the receiver number one. I expect him to kind of share that load a bit more with OBJ, but I still think he'll be a huge part. Peoples-Jones, I expect him to have another big progression. Obviously started the season very slow with Odell Beckham in the lineup, but really kind of gained some more responsibility, got some more targets. And I think he showed up. I think we could expect a bigger year from him in 2021. Same with Rashard Higgins, who also kind of maybe took on that role of receiver too and did a pretty good job of that. I expect both of those guys are very solid 3 and 4 options. Their offensive line, I think, is one of the best in the National Football League, especially in terms of run blocking. Jedrick Wills was overshadowed by Mekhi Becton and Tristan Wirfs seasons at tackle, but I think he did pretty well himself. The rest of the line was absolutely stacked. Joe Batonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin were all stellar in blocking, both passing and especially though in run blocking. So I expect them to be just as good in that department, and they're mostly fully healthy. Just J.C. Treader is the only one that is questionable for this game. And the one thing that they have a massive advantage in against Kansas City is their run game. They have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, probably arguably the best duo of running backs in the National Football League. Kareem Hunt was the rushing champ a few seasons ago. Many tend to forget Nick Chubb has potential to be the rushing champ this season. And with that offensive line, I would not be surprised if they have a field day against a kind of suspect Kansas City run defense. So now let's look at that Kansas City defense. I think one of the big things for this game is probably the injury to Kansas City that may have the biggest impact is Derek Nottie. I really like him as a run blocker and run defender. And if he can play this game, I think that makes a huge difference for Kansas City against Nick Chubb, against Kareem Hunt, their former player. Kalen Saunders, though, should be able to hold that line with Jared Reed if he isn't able to go. Again, Frank Clark, also the pass rush will really suffer if they do not have Frank Clark on the edge. Had started off slow in Kansas City, but really has proven to be a decent signing for Kansas City. And if he is wreaking havoc on the opposite side of Chris Jones, it could provide somewhat of a test to Cleveland's offensive line, who are, again, one of the best units in the NFL. I'm not very impressed by their linebacking core. Nick Bolton is a rookie, and I'm not sure how to feel about him. He was a second-round pick. Anthony Hitchens has played consistently. He's okay. He's not bad, but I don't know if he's going to be able to stop Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And their secondary, I don't think it's that bad. I think they have decent depth there. Charvarius Ward has been their CB1 for the past few years, and he has done a relatively solid job of holding down the fort. L'Jarius Sneed has had a very good season until he did go down with injury, and I expect him to continue that. I do like, obviously, though, the safeties with Juan Thornhill, Daniel Sorensen, and, of course, the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu, which I think will all have big effects on the effects for the Kansas City defense. So I think Kansas City, I think they have obviously they're mismatched here. I think Cleveland should be able to have a big game in terms of running the football. And I think their secondary, I think obviously Odell will probably be a bit rusty going the game. Jarvis didn't have an amazing season. So I think their secondary should hold up. But if Cleveland starts to pound the rock and starts to get the ball 5 yards each run, that might open up the pass a bit more. We could see a very, very good game for Cleveland's offense. So after this game, after the analysis of which team is better and in which facets in the offense and the defense, I honestly think that Cleveland actually have a better team overall. Like overall, I think they're the better team. But I would still go with Kansas City to win this game 31-24. And the reason why is that as much of an improvement that Baker Mayfield made last season, as much as I am actually think he can have a very good season himself, Mahomes is on another level. In my opinion, he is the best quarterback in the National Football League, even though he didn't win MVP. I think the weapons for Kansas City are going to be very, very important. Obviously, Cleveland will not be able to stop them fully, even though I think they have the better, more balanced roster. I think Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey are the three best players on the field going into that game. And when you do have that, even if Cleveland have probably the better overall team, I would pick Kansas City to win in a close game. I think it'll be kind of similar to that AFC Championship game, not AFC Championship, AFC Divisional round, and it will be a close game, but will be a cagey affair. Cleveland will score. I think we'll see a lot of long drives, maybe making defenses die the death of 1,000 cuts. But again, I think Kansas City win this in a close game, 31-24. But that is it for the video. Again, if you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. Again, I'm not the only host on this channel. We also have Kian, Charlie, and Dylan. They will all be doing their own NFL content, whether it is like this game previews, whether it's player analysis, film review, or how we all do week predictions every week. So make sure to tune in for that. And yep, thanks for watching.